Chat, the next round that we've got the Pluffy team and the green Zoro team right here. Number ones facing off against each other are going to be Ace and Zoro. Number twos are going to be Pluffy and Imu, and number threes going to be Imu and Ace. If you're looking for high quality One Piece TCG accessories, Riley TCG's got you covered. With a wide variety of playmats and designs in non-stitched, extended stitch, simple cloth, premium cloth, as well as 1 and 2 player mats, they've also got a great selection of standard, deluxe, and premium deck boxes for your favorite deck. If you want to bring your own ideas to life in designs, they've also got custom design options for both playmats and deck boxes that you can order. Also supplying sleeves on their website. They've got 10-pack sleeves, 60-pack sleeves, 120 if you want to sleeve all your decks in this style. You can save 5% off your order just by using code Atrocious at checkout. You can get some high quality products, help support the channel, so everybody wins with this stuff. Thank you again to Riley TCG for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it, shall we? So it's gonna be Pluffy versus Imu is our match. Pluffy, I was just kind of hyping up right in this format. Gonna be curious to see how this matchup specifically goes, right? Is this a matchup that Pluffy typically wants to see within the tournament, right? Especially as it's been more on the come up and kind of dodged the ban list, right? Without the Gum Gum Giant going away. We know that some of the cards that Pluffy got within OP13 can be utilized, like the Inu Arashi, the Silver's Rayleigh, right, that we didn't see in the Roger game but could be utilized. And a lot of these Pluffy decks as well that I've seen are starting to run Magellan, right? Having that leader effect of activating once per turn, you may add the top card of your life to your hand, and if the amount of Dawn in your field is 0 or 3 or more, you can add a Dawn as active, kind of nailing yourself on your life to be able to get that active Dawn. So we'll see how this deck list is built and how it can be utilized. One of the other cards that I've seen in some Pluffy lists in the OP13 format, the beginning weeks of this era, is Douglas Bullet, the 8 cost from the Shanks starter deck. So we'll see if it's in this list. This list, a little bit different, right? We see the Magellan in that Pluffy player's hand, but also a Jinbei. So the Jinbei could be nice to utilize. The Imu looks like they're going to be going first in this one. The Imu having one of the different tech cards that we see sometimes in these Imu decks. The 6-drop Sabo from PRBO2, especially if you play the card from hand and have 15 or more cards in trash. The Sabo actually only costs 3 to play out on the field, and as a blocker, a 3 cost 6,000 power blocker is something that you absolutely love. So probably in this matchup, I will say the Empty Throne is going to be coming out onto the field. If not already, there should be an Empty Throne out on the field. So this Luffy playing a vanilla 7/9 Jinbei in this deck, plus 1k counter on the side, as the difference between the Jinbei cost and power is 2. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one, right, with this Pluffy. Has to be doing well, right, if his team is in what I presume is in the top tables of this tournament. So looking at the hand in here, he's got Magellan, got some Usohachi and Sanji counter along with that Zorojuro. That Zorojuro is going to be pretty good to be able to find another piece within this deck, right? Plenty of different Straw Hat pieces that you're going to want to build, or you're going to be able to want to utilize to be able to keep accelerating your game plan, right? Especially as it specifically looks for a purple Straw Hat crew. The Imu does not have any 1-drop searches or anything like that, but does have a Saturn, I believe, in the hand to be able to search. And we're going to go off in this one. Imu going first is going to go ahead, use leader effect on that event to draw 1 card. Is going to go ahead, pass off the turn, no 1-drop search on the event, or the Shalair, I believe it's called. There. The Pluffy, right on his 2 Dawn turns, just goes ahead and passes, does not have any 1-drop Trafalgar Laws of his own to utilize. The Imu actually, instead of using Empty Throne at the start, does get that 1-drop stage, the Mary Joie, to play on the field. And so that is going to be able to allow him on the 3 Dawn turn to cheat out this Saturn and start getting some searching going within this game. I think he's thinking about another Saturn to grab, but is eyeing up that 1-cost Saint Shalria into the hand as well. Just a great card to be utilized in the upcoming turn to be able to build up your trash, but goes for the Saturn instead. The Imu players really respecting the Saturns in their decks, I feel like, that we've seen in this tournament. So is going to go ahead and use leader effect to get rid of the Valkyrie, right? Or is that one the Warcry? Gosh, the names. I think it's Warcry that he's named for that leader effect. And Pluffy just going to be starting out with a 5k lead. So just going to be able to take that. We'll see if he uses leader effect to ramp and play out the Magellan, right? Going to be going to 5 Dawn with this active. Looks like he is going to rest 5 and play out that Magellan. A lot of purple decks playing this card to help counter against Imu, right? Especially with that on play of Dawn -1, or your opponent has to return a Dawn to the Dawn deck. You did as well to get that Dawn -1 effect. But on your opponent's turn, if he tries to KO this character, right, your opponent has to put 2 Dawn back into their Dawn deck. So, especially with no bounce back effects or bottom decking effects in the Imu deck, this Magellan is going to be a very, very sticky 6,000 power body. Just a great card to have within this matchup as something that's not really searchable. So with the Saturn swing, is just going to counter out with this Bond Clay, not worried as much about ramping from characters, is going to go ahead play the other Saturn, does find a 1-drop searcher, but also finds Jupiter in this hand. Does find 2 Jupiters, probably going to grab 1 just to make sure that he's got it available to him for the rest of this game, right? Being able to use it for leader effect, being able to put it in trash and recycle it constantly with the Gorosen 10-drop. And now I think is thinking about playing a 1-drop right here. So is going to go ahead with that leader effect to pitch that 1-drop event and go ahead now, swing 5,000 power at lead, is going to try to command another card in hand, and is going to utilize the Sanji. So is going to go ahead with that Sanji, end the turn with a search. Does go ahead with that 1-drop event, building up the trash, does find the 2-drop blocker that we've seen players play in these Imu decks. A great blocker, right? Being able on that on play to mill 1 card from the top of the deck. Now goes into the Pluffy's 6 Dawn turn. Does have another Magellan. Could go in with back-to-back Magellan turns and just flood this board with this guy. Has a 3rd Magellan in the hand. I didn't even see the other Magellan that he had. He could have back-to-back-to-back turns of Magellan, just putting this Imu back on the Dawn count. Could just be such a good card within this matchup, but how many is too many, I will say, inside this deck. So is thinking about just going in with a 5k swing at first. We'll see if he decides to just constantly go at lead, or maybe try to swing at some of these characters right now. And so uses leader effect to go ahead, ramp 1 Dawn. We see a Silver's Rayleigh in there. Can't play that down on this turn because you are only at 7. But Silver's Rayleigh, especially with that rush, is going to be nice to be able to control tempo on the board later in the game. Especially being able with that on play effect to rest a 5 cost or less. We'll see it in a future turn, but for now is thinking about just going ahead and swinging 5 first with lead, and this 5 going in at a lead, I believe, not swinging at these characters. So is going to go ahead, counter out of that swing with a 1k from the Venus. We'll see if this Magellan goes in at the Saturn or not in controlling the board. Is just going in, I think just going straight in at face. Says, you know what? I'm just going to try to pressure you as much as possible. I don't want you to cycle these characters out onto the field. I want to eat these cards in your hand right now. So is going to go ahead, counter out, especially using the leader effect to ramp one Dawn. Could go ahead and play that Jinbei out onto the field. It would be a 9,000 power character, a deadly body that can't be reached with the different Elder that KOs the Mars, right? As the Mars can only KO a 5 cost or less. Is really thinking about whether or not he wants to play the Jinbei or the Mars, and is going to go ahead with the Jinbei Vanilla from OP09, right? Just a simple 7-9, but sometimes the Vanillas are just exactly what you want in this game. So is going to go ahead off to the Emu's turn right now. So on this, Emu has about 8 cards in trash, I believe, right now. It's going to go ahead, swing now 5 at lead, just try to poke in the opponent's hand on his own. Now, the problem with the Pluffy's hand, I feel like right now, is there's actually not a lot of counter right here, especially after giving up this Usohachi. You might be taking some life on these other swings that you've got on your opponent's side. So is going to go ahead with that 5K swing. No counter cards in hand, I believe, at this point. Is going to go ahead, grab Nekomamushi. So the Nekomamushi, one of the 2K Roger Pirate cards, as the Emu player over on the right side, is going to go ahead with just another Saturn right now. Is going to go ahead, grab that Mars, probably not going to play it at this point, right? I don't know if you want to pop the Magellan. There's a certain point where you have to respect the Magellan, but probably not until you're at 10 Dawn do you want to utilize that, immediately pitching for the leader effect. So now swinging 5 at lead, is thinking about countering out with this Nekomamushi right here. That would just be another 2K gone and down the drain. I think already down 4 2Ks right now. So is going to go ahead and play that 2-drop blocker down on the field to get to 10 cards in the trash at this point. And passing off the turn with 2 Dawn up. Does have some counter events that he can utilize, but Pluffy now maybe needing to play the Zorojuro just to be able to find counter, even if it's just Gum Gum Giant at this point. So now going to be sitting at 9 Dawn. Has so much to work with right now. Has a 9,000 power body, has the Magellan on the field, another 6,000 power body. We'll see what he decides to do right here. It's kind of tough because I feel like you, one, want to play the Zorojuro because you don't have any counter in hand, right, outside of the 2K Usohachi. But at the same time, the Silver's Rayleigh, right, that has that rush, is able to rest a 5 cost, right? You can rest that 2-drop blocker on the field to force him not to be able to utilize that, right? Might just be advantageous in itself if you want to go in and rush, because Emu is going to be hitting a Dawn next turn. They can't play the Gorosen. They can't play out the 5 Elders out onto the field. You kind of stall out another turn of that. So maybe it might be like a situation where you play the Silver's Rayleigh, maybe you try to control board a little bit at this point, maybe try to eat up some of these cards in hand, and then maybe in your next turn you can go double Magellan, right, on that on your next 10 Dawn turn to not only just put the Emu back 1 turn, but a whole turn, right? Because if he goes to 8 next turn, then it goes to your 10 Dawn turn. It might be advantageous to just play double Magellan and make sure that he once again cannot go to 10. So is going to start out with a 7,000 power swing at what looks like the Saturn is now going at the characters on field. I would imagine if he was going to play the Silver's Rayleigh, he would probably have done that first within the game. Maybe thinking about going a little bit wider than that at this point. Maybe thinking about Zorojuro and maybe using leader effect to ramp, play a 5-cost Magellan or something like that. But using that event, it wasn't there to be able to get out of that swing. And now going in with the Rayleigh. It seems like tapping the rest of his Dawn, just reading to make sure that he gets the ruling correct. Is going to rest that 2-drop blocker right there and now have the ability to swing at these characters, especially as he did not end up blocking. And so ends up getting a KO on that blocker right there. Definitely wanted to get rid of that. And now the two 9,000 power swings that you have in the Silver's Rayleigh and the Jinbei is more than likely going to be able to get rid of these two Saturns if you try to swing at them. So it does get rid of the one. Now Silver's Rayleigh maybe getting rid of the other. The Silver's Rayleigh also at the end of turn is going to be able to restand ramp one as active. So especially right now, he can go ahead and feint a Gum Gum Giant at this point. One of the strongest cards in the game and often surprised a lot of people dodging the ban list. The Silver's Rayleigh gives excellent synergy to this Pluffy deck, a strong point, I would say, as to why this deck is coming up more and more viable within the format. So Imu now at 8 Dawn cannot do a Gorosen play, right? Can't even cheat that guy out. We'll see what he decides to do right here on this play as he goes ahead, swings the Saturn, now 5,000 power at lead. Might go ahead and just counter out of this one and then take the second one and maybe just hope that there's no rush character to be able to utilize right now to be able to get more swings in. So now thinking about swinging this 5 is going to go ahead and go at lead. Is going to have to take this life with no counter in hand. See what it is. It looks like it is no counter still. An 8 cost Katakuri. Definitely going to be needing to find a Gum Gum Giant, I feel like, at this point. And with the leader effect, is going to pitch the 2K to be able to get a Gorosen. And now with the 5 coming in with the 6-drop blocker. So is not going to go in for the KO effect on there. And now, especially with the amount in trash, going to get another blocker in this Sabo out onto the field. So Pluffy now, I think Pluffy has a really tough choice. I was saying that maybe you want to go double Magellan in the next turn, but especially with no counter in the hand and only 1 life, maybe you actually want to go in with the Zorojuro, try to find something like a Gum Gum Giant, just do like a Zorojuro and Magellan play, because, right, 1 Magellan would put this Emu down to 7 Dawn and only allow him to be up to 9 Dawn. That would allow him to play a Gorosen, but not allow him to utilize Gorosen's activate main to get all the elders out onto the field. Definitely a really interesting situation right now for this Pluffy, and Emu still sitting very healthy at 3 life. So especially if you go that double Magellan play, right, and maybe Emu doesn't block with any of the 4 swings that you've got on the field, you actually really leave yourself open to be able to just be mathed out with the different swings that this Emu player could have, right? Especially with these blockers. You could take out the Saturn, sure, but you really can't take out the Mars or the Sabo on the field unless you have some sort of KO effect at this point, because you can't force them to block. So swings with the Magellan first, 4 cards in hand for this Emu. Looks like he is going to be 2K out of that one. Looks like maybe was going at the Saturn. So especially with 3 cards in hand, man, I just think you have to go Zorojuro and Magellan at this point. Is it Gorosei? Oh, thank you, Mikey. Gorosei. I'm just trying to get you guys to leave comments and stuff. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I feel like you just get easily mathed out, right? You have no blockers. You don't have a way to go for game at this point. So I think you just need to stall out a way to deter this 10 drop from coming out onto the field and spreading out the board. So this 9K swing going at the Saturn, getting that knockout. And so going in now with this Zorojuro, I think this is the correct play right now. You've still got 6 Dawn to be able to work with. Is going to look for something like a Gum Gum Giant. I think Gum Gum Giant would actually be so ideal right now. Doesn't look like he's finding it. It's hard to tell what the other cards that he's got in this deck are. Does see a Gum Gum Giant right there in that stack. I think that is the correct card to get. We also see a 9-drop Secret Rare Rush Luffy and the 4-drop starter deck Nami blocker in this deck. So this deck being built in a very interesting way. I feel like the Gum Gum Giant's going to be very nice. You're going to have a sort of sigh of relief meaning that it's going to be a lot harder for this Imu deck to take you and knock out now. So now with 6 Dawn left, still with the Jinbei and the leader swing that you've got right now, I wonder if you try to, putting 3 on. So is not going to go ahead and go with the Magellan play. Is going to go ahead, just swing 8,000 power at lead, take the life. A third Gorosei in the hand. Interesting. And is just going to attach 1, now swing 10, maybe try to feint that he's got 2 Gum Gum Giants in hand and pass off the turn. Maybe a little worried about if he tried to go like a 5K swing, maybe a easy block for the Sabo, but the Imu going in, starting out swing 5, is going to use leader effect on that Mars to be able to draw 1, especially if you're going to play with a Gorosei right here on this turn to be able to utilize the full effect of that 10 drop that we've constantly seen within this tournament so far. So is going to go ahead, use that effect to pitch another Gorosei, right? Still having 1 in the hand. Is now going to get out the 5 Elders, 2 blockers, 1 Searcher, and 1 with Rush, especially with the Rush and these Elders now being at 7,000 power. You're going to have to give up a card if you want to be able to save something like the Jinbei, something like the Silver's Rayleigh. At this point, I think probably you still leave alone the Magellan. I don't think you're really worried about the Magellan, but especially with the on KO effect of the Mars, right, getting rid of the Zoro Juro is going to leave 1 less body on the field now for this Pluffy. And so now with gosh, what was his name? The one that has Rush is what I'm going to call him. The Venus. The Venus with the Rush is going to minus 2,000 power onto the field and go in with the 7,000 power swing. The Magellan, as they're showing on KO, I think clarifying you want to go at this Magellan right now would have to Dawn -2 to be able to do that. And so ends up using the Gum Gum Giant to be able to save the Magellan. Actually, and now after putting 2 away, is going to go ahead, draw 2 cards, does find a Fernosuke and a Mr. 2 Bon Clay, so does have a little bit of counter cards in hand, still has 1 Dawn open. Might be going to go in with the Katakuri, potentially in this next turn, and off of this swing right here. On this 5K swing, thinking about pitching a 2K? Why pitch the 2K instead of the 1K? Maybe trying to go a Magellan and Mr. 2 play in the next turn, right? Magellan would put 1 Dawn back, but then Mr. 2 would be able to re-ramp that Dawn. But the Dawn minus not necessarily mattering in this situation, right? So the Pluffy now kind of in a sticky situation, I feel like. Yeah, the Nazjuro is the one with the Rush, the Elder with the Rush. I just always forget their name because I'm not that far in the anime, and there's 5 of them that I have to remember, and they're all like planets, but I get all the planets mixed up in my head. It's hard being stupid. And so it starts out swinging 5,000 power over at the only rested character on the field for the Imu side, is going to try to fetch a card, is going to get that Saint Shalria into the trash, and now a 6,000 power swing, gonna fetch a 2K more than likely, and definitely with this counter hurts the Pluffy right now. The 9,000 power going in with the block and draw 1 with that on KO effect. The 9,000 power on the Jinbei going in, maybe prompting just another block at this point, right? Maybe you're worried about like the 9-cost Rush Luffy from that secret rare, but I think that's a good block. Kind of force them to have that Rush character, but no. 8-cost Katakuri coming down onto the field, passing off the turn, and 2 Dawn up. Only 3K counter in hand, and 4, potentially 5 swings with another Gorosen coming into this next turn that the Pluffy has to counter around against. I think he's got to find Gum Gum Giant on this last life to be able to survive within this game and in this turn. So now going in with the 7,000 power swing, it'll be curious to see what he decides to minus on this swing, right? Especially as the Nazu Juro, or I think Venus Juro, as you guys were telling me, that 2,000 power minus is for the entire turn. So if he were to swing with that first and minus the Katakuri blocker, that Katakuri blocker would actually be a 6,000 power blocker for the rest of the turn. And a lot of these elders would be able to not get a free block on this Katakuri, because at this point, it's a free block. And with no counter on that one, and no free block on the Katakuri right here, this 7,000 power swing minusing the Katakuri, that's why I would have wanted to block first with the Katakuri, is going to go ahead 2K, 1K to get out of that swing. Only 2 cards left in hand. The Imu going in, kind of reading between the lines on this one, just going to be a 5K poke, now a 7K poke, and no counter in the hand. Imu going to be winning that match. I would have been very curious to see how that game might have played out if he tried to be more aggressive with the Magellans after the Zoro Juro Magellan turn to be able to kind of like stall out a Gorosen, I will say. So it looks like the teams right now neck and neck in this one. We'll see which team has to advance.